I have a question for you before we start. Have you ever trusted someone and instantly regretted it? Comment yes or no below. And if you enjoy real, raw storytelling, like this video so I know to make more like it.
The moment Elena Ward signed the marriage contract, she became the property of the most dangerous man in the city. Dominic Moretti, feared Mafia boss, ruthless king of the underworld, had just claimed her as his wife. Everyone whispered it was a cold transaction, a political alliance between two powerful families. But what no one knew was the truth hidden in Dominic's dark eyes. He had been waiting 10 years for this moment. 10 years of silent obsession. 10 years of carefully orchestrated moves to ensure that when Elena finally married, it would be to him and no one else. If you're ready to dive into a story of dangerous love, hidden obsession, and deadly betrayal, stay with me until the very end. And don't forget to hit that like button and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels across the world. Up. The rain fell in sheets against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Ward family mansion, each drop a tiny explosion against the glass. Elena Ward stood in the center of the grand library, her hands clasped tightly in front of her, and watched as her fate was decided by people who had never truly considered her family. "The Moretti alliance is essential," Richard Ward declared, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. He stood behind his massive oak desk, his silver hair perfectly styled, his custom suit immaculate. "Our position in this city depends on it." Elena's adoptive mother, Catherine Ward, sat elegantly on the leather sofa, her expression carefully neutral. She hadn't looked at Elena once during the entire conversation. Beside her, Vanessa Ward, the golden daughter, the one they actually loved, examined her manicured nails with studied disinterest. "Elena will marry Dominic Moretti in 3 weeks," Richard continued, as if discussing a business merger rather than his daughter's life. "All arrangements have been made." Elena felt something cold settle in her chest. Not surprise. She'd learned long ago not to expect warmth from these people. Not fear either. Just a quiet, hollow acceptance. "I understand," she said softly. For the first time, Catherine looked up. "You're being remarkably cooperative." Elena met her adoptive mother's gaze steadily. "You took me in when I had nothing. You gave me a home, an education, a name. If this is how I can repay that debt, then I'll do it gladly." The words tasted like ash in her mouth, but they were true. Sort of. The Wards had given her survival, even if they'd never given her love. She'd spent 15 years being invisible in this house, a shadow among people who shone. The quiet girl who ate dinner in silence, who studied alone in her room, who learned early that gratitude was safer than hope. "How noble," Vanessa murmured, her voice dripping with something Elena couldn't quite name. Saint Elena, sacrificing herself for the family. "Vanessa," Catherine said sharply, "that's enough." But Elena saw the flash in Vanessa's eyes, something dark and hungry that made her skin prickle with unease. "The Morettis have requested a private meeting," Richard said, pulling Elena's attention back. "Tomorrow evening. Dominic wants to meet his bride." "Of course," Elena replied. That night, alone in her bedroom, Elena sat by the window and stared out at the city lights bleeding through the darkness. Somewhere out there was Dominic Moretti, the man whose name made grown men pale, whose empire was built on violence and fear. She'd seen his photograph in the news. Dark eyes, sharp features, an expression of cold calculation. He looked exactly like what he was. Dangerous. Elena pressed her forehead against the cool glass. Tomorrow she would meet the man who would own her future. A man who undoubtedly saw her as nothing more than a useful pawn, a bridge between his criminal empire and the Ward family's political connections. She wondered if he would even bother to learn her name. The Moretti estate sprawled across 5 acres of prime real estate overlooking the bay. As Elena's car passed through the security gates, she counted no fewer than a dozen armed guards stationed along the winding driveway. The mansion itself was a masterpiece of modern architecture, all clean lines, glass, and understated power. Richard and Catherine had insisted on accompanying her, though Elena suspected it had less to do with parental concern and more to do with ensuring the deal went smoothly. They sat on either side of her in the back of the limousine, silent and tense. A man in an expensive suit opened Elena's door as soon as they arrived. Miss Ward, Mr. and Mrs. Ward, Mr. Moretti is waiting in the East Wing. They were led through corridors that felt more like an art gallery than a home. Every detail spoke of wealth and taste, the kind of careful curation that took both money and knowledge to achieve. Elena found herself focusing on the paintings, the sculptures, anything to avoid thinking about what waited at the end of their journey. The door to Moretti's private office was solid mahogany, at least 3 inches thick. Their escort knocked twice, then opened it. "The ward, sir." Elena stepped inside and felt the air change. Dominic Moretti stood with his back to them, looking out through a massive window at the bay below. Even in silhouette, his presence dominated the room. Tall, broad-shouldered, perfectly still. When he turned, Elena's breath caught. The photographs hadn't done him justice. Or perhaps they'd captured something different, the public face of a ruthless businessman. In person, he was something else entirely. Dark hair swept back from a face too perfectly carved to be anything but dangerous. His eyes were nearly black, intense in a way that made Elena feel exposed. But what shocked her was the way he looked at her. Not through her, not past her, at her. "Elena," he said, and his voice was deep, controlled. "Thank you for coming." "Mr. Moretti," Richard stepped forward, hand extended. "We appreciate—" "I wasn't talking to you." The words were soft, but absolute. Richard's hand dropped. Dominic crossed the room toward Elena. Every movement was precise, economical, like a predator conserving energy. He stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she could smell cedar and something darker, like smoke. "Leave us," he said, his eyes never leaving Elena's face. "Mr. Moretti," Catherine began, "surely it would be more appropriate. Your daughter is about to become my wife. I'd like 5 minutes alone with her, unless you think she requires a chaperone." It wasn't really a question. Richard and Catherine exchanged glances, then moved toward the door with barely concealed irritation. When the door clicked shut, the silence in the room became almost physical. "You didn't fight this," Dominic said. Not a question, a statement. Elena lifted her chin. "No." "Why? Does it matter?" Something flickered in his dark eyes, surprise maybe, or recognition. "Most women would be terrified, or at least pretend to be." "Would you prefer that?" Elena asked. "Should I cry? Beg you to release me from this terrible fate?" The corner of his mouth twitched. "You have a sharp tongue, Elena Ward." "Only when I'm cornered." "Are you? Cornered?" Elena considered the question seriously. Was she? The marriage was happening regardless of what she wanted. She could scream, cry, throw herself at his mercy. It wouldn't change anything, so why waste the energy? "We both know what this is," she said quietly. "A business arrangement. Your empire needs legitimacy. My family needs protection. I'm the bridge between those needs. There's no point in pretending otherwise." Dominic studied her for a long moment. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect? A frightened girl? Or a social climber thrilled to catch a rich husband?" "I'm neither." "No," he agreed. "You're not." He moved past her to a bar cart against the wall, poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. He held one out to Elena. She hesitated, then took it. Their fingers brushed, and Elena felt something electric shoot up her arm. "To honest transactions," Dominic said, raising his glass. Elena raised hers. "To useful arrangements." They drank. The whiskey burned going down, but Elena welcomed the heat. It gave her something to focus on besides the way Dominic watched her, like she was a puzzle he was determined to solve. "I have terms," he said. "Of course you do. You'll live in this house. You'll attend events as my wife. You'll be treated with respect by everyone in my organization. Anyone who fails to do so will answer to me personally." Elena nodded slowly. Standard enough, if more protective than she'd anticipated. "In exchange," Dominic continued, "you'll maintain the appearance of a proper marriage. No affairs, no scandals. And you'll tell me the truth when I ask you questions." "The truth?" "I value honesty, Elena, even when it's uncomfortable." She met his eyes. "And if I ask you for truth in return, then I'll give it to you." It should have sounded like a fair deal, but something in his voice made Elena think he was promising her more than simple honesty, or perhaps threatening her with it. "What about—" Elena paused. choosing her words carefully. What about your personal life? My personal life? I assume a man like you has relationships. I'm not naive enough to expect fidelity in a business marriage. Something dangerous flashed across Dominic's face. He set down his glass with deliberate care and took a step toward her. Then another. Elena fought the urge to back away. Let me be very clear, he said softly. From the moment you become my wife, you are the only woman in my life, the only one who matters, the only one I will touch. If you think I'm the kind of man who makes vows lightly, you're wrong. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. But this isn't a real marriage, isn't it? You don't love me. You don't even know me. Dominic's eyes held hers with an intensity that made her feel dizzy. You're right, I don't love you. The words should have been a relief. Instead, they felt like a blade between her ribs. But I will, he continued. Give me time, Elena. I'll learn every secret you keep, every dream you hide, every truth you're afraid to speak. And when I'm done, you'll realize something. What's that? He leaned in close enough that she could feel his breath against her ear. That you belong with me. You always have. Before Elena could respond, he stepped back and called toward the door. You can return now. Richard and Catherine entered immediately. They must have been waiting just outside. The wedding will proceed as planned, Dominic announced. Elena has agreed to all terms. Excellent, Richard said, relief evident in his voice. We'll coordinate with your people on the details. One more thing. Dominic's voice cut through the room like a knife. Elena is under my protection now. Anyone who harms her, anyone who even speaks to her with disrespect, becomes my enemy. I trust that's understood? Catherine's eyes widened slightly. Of course, Mr. Moretti. Elena is family. No, Dominic said coldly. She was your tool. Now she's my wife. There's a significant difference. The drive home was silent. Elena stared out the window, her mind replaying every moment of the encounter, the way Dominic had looked at her, the absolute certainty in his voice when he made his declarations. You belong with me. You always have. What did that mean? They'd never met before today. She was certain of it. She would have remembered a man like Dominic Moretti, wouldn't she? The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of preparations that Elena had no real part in. Wedding planners came and went. Dress fittings happened around her while she stood still and silent. The wards were in their element, networking furiously, using Elena's upcoming marriage to strengthen their own positions. Vanessa grew more venomous by the day. Must be nice, she hissed one afternoon when they were alone in the fitting room, landing the most powerful man in the city without even trying. Elena didn't look up from the magazine she wasn't reading. You could have had him if you wanted. They would have given you instead. Don't be stupid. Everyone knows Moretti specifically requested you. Why? What did you do? Nothing. Liar. Vanessa's reflection in the mirror showed a beautiful face twisted with ugly emotion. You must have done something, slept with him, blackmailed him somehow. Elena finally met her sister's eyes. If you actually believe I have that kind of power, then maybe you should be less concerned with what I did and more concerned with what that says about you. Vanessa's face flushed red. You ungrateful girls! Catherine swept into the room, her smile sharp. The photographer is waiting. But Elena saw the calculation in her adoptive mother's eyes. She was wondering the same thing Vanessa was. Why had Dominic Moretti chosen Elena? If only Elena knew the answer. The wedding took place on a Saturday evening in late September. The ceremony was held at the Cathedral of St. Michael, the most prestigious venue in the city, with soaring ceilings and stained glass that caught the dying light. Despite Elena's outline preference for no religious references, the wards had insisted on the location for appearance's sake. Elena stood in the bride's room, staring at her reflection. The dress was exquisite, ivory silk that fell in perfect lines, simple and elegant. Her dark hair was swept up, revealing her neck. She looked like a bride from a magazine. She looked like a stranger. It's time, Catherine said from the doorway. Elena turned. Her adoptive mother looked regal in midnight blue, every inch the society matriarch. But there was no warmth in her eyes. There never had been. Elena, Catherine said, and for a moment Elena thought she might say something real, something true. Try not to embarrass us, Elena smiled. I'll do my best. The walk down the aisle felt endless. Hundreds of guests filled the pews, politicians, business leaders, socialites, and more than a few people Elena recognized from the crime reports. The elite and the underground, all gathered to witness the union of the Ward family and the Moretti Empire. And at the end of the aisle stood Dominic. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than most people's cars, perfectly tailored to his powerful frame. But it was his face that stopped Elena's breath. He was looking at her the same way he had in his office, with that unnerving intensity that made her feel like she was the only person in the room. Richard delivered her to Dominic's side, then stepped back. The officiant began speaking, but Elena barely heard the words. She was too aware of Dominic beside her, his presence overwhelming. When it came time for the vows, Dominic took her hand. His fingers were warm, strong. He spoke the words clearly, his eyes never leaving hers. I, Dominic Moretti, take you, Elena Ward, to be my wife. I promise to honor you, protect you, and cherish you for as long as I live. The words were standard, traditional, but the way he said them, the weight behind each syllable, made them feel like a blood oath. Elena's voice was quieter when she spoke her own vows, but she didn't falter. I, Elena Ward, take you, Dominic Moretti, to be my husband. I promise to honor you, respect you, and stand beside you for as long as I live. She didn't promise to love him. He didn't seem to expect it. The rings, the officiant said. Dominic's best man, a dangerous-looking man named Marco, handed over 2 platinum bands. Dominic slid one onto Elena's finger, his touch gentle despite his reputation for violence. When it was her turn, Elena took the larger band and slid it onto Dominic's finger. His hand dwarfed hers, scarred and strong. I now pronounce you husband and wife, the officiant declared. You may kiss the bride. Dominic stepped closer. He cupped Elena's face with both hands, tilting her chin up. For a heartbeat, they just looked at each other. Then he lowered his mouth to hers. The kiss was soft, gentle. Nothing like what Elena had expected from a man with Dominic's reputation. His lips moved against hers with careful reverence, as if she were something precious, something worth protecting. When he pulled back, his dark eyes held a promise Elena didn't understand. Mine, he whispered, so softly only she could hear. The reception was held at the Four Seasons, in a ballroom that had been transformed into something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers, white roses everywhere, champagne flowing like water. The guests danced and drank and congratulated the happy couple. Elena played her part perfectly. She smiled, made small talk, accepted well wishes from people she'd never met. Dominic stayed close, his hand often at the small of her back, a gesture that felt protective rather than possessive. But Elena couldn't shake the feeling that she was performing in a play she didn't understand, that everyone around her knew lines she'd never been given. You're doing well, Dominic said during one of the rare quiet moments. They stood on the balcony overlooking the city, away from the crowd. I'm good at pretending, Elena replied. Is that what you're doing? Pretending? She looked up at him. The moonlight carved shadows across his face, making him look even more dangerous. Aren't we both? Dominic was quiet for a moment. Then, do you remember Westfield Academy? The question caught Elena off guard. The prep school? I went there for 2 years before the ward sent me to boarding school. Do you remember a boy who used to eat lunch alone in the library? Elena frowned, searching her memory. Westfield felt like a lifetime ago. She'd been so young, so desperately lonely. The wards had just taken her in, and the other students had treated her like a curiosity at best, an intruder at worst. There were a lot of lonely people at that school, she said finally. Not people. One person, a boy who sat in the corner by the window every day, who never talked to anyone, who read philosophy books during lunch. Something stirred in Elena's memory, a quiet presence, dark eyes that sometimes watched her from across the library. You, she breathed. Dominic's expression didn't change. Me. I don't understand. You were there? Why didn't you say anything? Talk to you? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I was nobody then, Elena, the scholarship kid from the wrong side of town. You were the new daughter of the powerful Ward family. We might as well have lived on different planets. I wouldn't have cared about that, Elena said. I was so lonely. If you just talked to me, I know you were lonely. I saw you every day, sitting by yourself, reading books about places you wanted to escape to. I saw everything, Elena, and I told myself that someday when I was someone, when I had power and money and respect, I would find you again. Elena's heart was racing. Dominic, do you know what I thought when I heard the Wards were looking to marry you off? His voice was soft, dangerous. I thought, finally, the chance I've been waiting for. So I made sure that every other potential suitor disappeared from consideration. I made sure that the only acceptable option was me. You manipulated this entire arrangement? Yes. The simple honesty of it stole her breath. Why? Dominic turned to face her fully. Because I've spent 10 years building an empire, Elena. 10 years becoming someone worthy of you. And now that I have you, I'm never letting you go. Before Elena could respond, the sound of breaking glass came from inside the ballroom. Then screaming, Dominic moved instantly, pushing Elena behind him. Stay here! But Elena followed as he strode back into the reception. The crowd had parted near the main entrance. On the floor lay a man in a waiter's uniform, blood pooling around his head. Standing over him was Marco, Dominic's best man, his expression cold. Boss, Marco said calmly. He had a weapon. Poison, looks like. Was heading for your wife's champagne glass. A ripple of shock went through the crowd. Dominic's entire demeanor changed. The careful gentleman vanished, replaced by something lethal. Who sent you? Dominic asked the dying man. The man's mouth moved, but no words came out. Then his eyes went glassy and he stopped breathing. Clear the room, Dominic ordered. His men appeared from nowhere, efficiently ushering guests toward the exits. Within minutes, the ballroom was empty except for Dominic, Elena, Marco, and a handful of Dominic's inner circle. Analysis, Dominic said, his voice like ice. One of his men knelt by the body, checking pockets. Professional, no ID, but he's got a tattoo. Looks like the Volkov mark. Dominic's jaw tightened. Victor Volkov. Who's that? Elena asked. Dominic turned to her, and for the first time she saw real anger in his eyes. Not at her, but on her behalf. A rival, someone who's been trying to move into my territory for months. This was a message. He tried to kill me to send you a message? No. Dominic's voice was deadly soft. He tried to kill you because he knew it would destroy me. The weight of those words hung in the air between them. Get her home, Dominic said to Marco. Full security detail. No one gets within 100 yards of her. What are you going to do? Elena asked. Dominic looked at her, and she saw something ancient and terrible in his eyes. I'm going to make sure Victor Volkov regrets every decision that led him to this moment, and then I'm going to make sure he can never make another decision again. Dominic, he crossed to her in 2 strides, cupped her face the way he had during their kiss. You are my wife, Elena. Mine to protect, mine to cherish. Anyone who threatens you threatens everything I am. Do you understand? Elena nodded, unable to speak. Good. He pressed a kiss to her forehead, gentle, despite the violence radiating from every line of his body. Marco will take you to the estate. I'll be home before morning. As Marco led her toward the exit, Elena looked back once. Dominic stood in the center of the empty ballroom, surrounded by his men, already planning his retribution. She'd married a Mafia boss. She'd known it intellectually. But now, watching him transform into something cold and ruthless, she understood it in her bones. And the strangest part was that she wasn't afraid. She should be. Any rational person would be. But all Elena felt was a strange certainty that Dominic Moretti would burn the entire world to keep her safe. And maybe, just maybe, she'd let him. The Moretti estate felt different in the pre-dawn darkness. Colder. More fortress than home. Elena stood at the window of what was now her bedroom. A sprawling suite that connected to Dominic's through a set of double doors he'd promised to keep closed until she was ready. She hadn't slept. How could she? Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the dead man on the ballroom floor. The blood. The calculated efficiency with which Marco had eliminated a threat. The ease with which violence had erupted in the middle of her wedding reception. Mrs. Moretti? Elena turned to find a woman in her 50s standing in the doorway, her silver hair pulled back in an elegant bun. She wore a simple black dress and carried herself with quiet authority. "I'm Teresa," the woman said, "head of household staff. Mr. Moretti asked me to ensure you have everything you need." "I'm fine, thank you." Teresa's knowing eyes swept over Elena's wedding dress, still on, still pristine, except for where she'd kicked off her shoes hours ago. "Perhaps you'd like to change. I've already unpacked your belongings." Elena looked down at herself. The dress suddenly felt suffocating. "Yes, please." 20 minutes later, dressed in soft pajamas she barely remembered packing, Elena found herself following Teresa through the quiet mansion. "Mr. Moretti wanted you to know you have full access to the entire estate," Teresa explained. "Library, gym, pool, gardens, anything you need, just ask." "Even freedom?" The words slipped out before Elena could stop them. Teresa paused, then turned with a slight smile. "Especially that, Mrs. Moretti, though I suspect you'll find the freedom here comes with better protection than anywhere else in this city." They ended up in the kitchen, a massive space of marble and steel that somehow still felt warm. Teresa prepared tea while Elena sat at the island, watching dawn break over the bay through floor-to-ceiling windows. "How long have you worked for Dominic?" Elena asked. 15 years, since he was 23 and had just purchased this estate with money from his first major acquisition. "You've watched him build all of this." "I've watched him become who he needed to be." Teresa set a delicate cup in front of Elena. "He's a good man, Mrs. Moretti. I know what the world sees, what they whisper. But I've seen him save families from ruin, protect people who had no one else, show mercy when others would show none. He killed someone tonight, or ordered it done. He protected his wife." Teresa's voice was firm. "There's a difference." Elena wrapped her hands around the warm cup. "I don't know if I can do this. Be the wife of a man like him." "A man like what? Powerful? Dangerous? Completely devoted to you?" Elena's head snapped up. "Devoted?" Teresa's expression softened. "Child, I've never seen Dominic Moretti look at anyone the way he looks at you. Whatever else you doubt, don't doubt that." Before Elena could respond, the sound of cars pulling up outside made her pulse jump. Teresa glanced at her watch. Right on time. Moments later, Dominic strode into the kitchen. He changed out of his tuxedo into dark pants and a black shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle. His hair was slightly disheveled, and there was a shadow of stubble on his jaw. He looked dangerous and tired and somehow more real than he had all night. "Teresa," he said, his voice rough. "Thank you. You can go." Teresa nodded and slipped out, leaving them alone. Dominic crossed to the sink, washed his hands thoroughly. Elena watched him, trying to determine if that was blood he was cleaning away. When he finished, he dried his hands methodically, then turned to face her. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No. Are you?" "No." They stood there, two strangers bound by law and circumstance, studying each other across the kitchen island. "Did you kill him?" Elena asked quietly. "Viktor Volkov?" "Not yet. But you will." "Yes." Elena should have been horrified, should have recoiled. Instead, she found herself asking, "When?" Dominic's eyes flickered with something that might have been approval. "When I'm certain I've extracted every piece of useful information from him. When I know who else was involved in the attempt on your life. When I'm sure that his death will serve as a clear message to anyone else who might consider you a target." He spoke about murder the way other men spoke about business strategy. Calm, calculated, utterly without remorse. "You're not afraid of me," Dominic observed. "Should I be?" "Most people are." Elena set down her tea. "I'm not most people. You knew that when you orchestrated this marriage." "I did." He moved closer, leaning against the counter opposite her. "How much do you remember about Westfield? About that year?" The question caught her off guard. "Not much. I was miserable. The wards had just taken me in, and I didn't fit anywhere. The rich kids hated me for being an outsider. The scholarship kids hated me for being a ward. I spent most of my time in the library trying to be invisible. You used to sit in the window seat on the third floor. You'd read during lunch. Elena's breath caught. How do you know that? Because I sat 15 feet away watching you every single day for 6 months. Why didn't you ever say anything? Dominic's expression was unreadable. What would I have said? I was 17, Elena, angry at the world, fighting my way up from nothing. You were this quiet, sad girl who read poetry and stared out windows like you were waiting for rescue. I knew I couldn't save you, not then. I could barely save myself. So you just watched me and memorized everything. The way you tucked your hair behind your ear when you concentrated. How you always ordered the same lunch, turkey sandwich, apple, water. That you wrote in a journal with a dark blue cover. That you smiled exactly 3 times in 6 months, and each time it was because of something you read, not something anyone said. Elena felt something crack open in her chest. That's not normal, Dominic. That's obsession. I know. No shame in his voice, just fact. When the ward sent you away to boarding school, I tracked your movements, made sure you were safe, watched from a distance as you grew up. And when I heard Richard Ward was looking to marry you off to secure an alliance, I made my move. You've been planning this for 10 years. Yes, that's insane. Probably. Dominic pushed off from the counter, closing the distance between them. But you're here now. You're mine now. And I'm going to spend every day proving that I'm the only man who will ever truly see you. Elena stood, bringing them face to face. You don't know me, Dominic. You know a lonely girl from a decade ago. I'm not her anymore. Then let me know who you are now. Why? This is a business arrangement. You said so yourself. Something fierce flashed in his eyes. I lied. Before Elena could process that, her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it. A message from Vanessa. Must be nice playing queen in your castle while the rest of us deal with the fallout of last night's disaster. Mother is furious. You've embarrassed the family. Elena felt cold anger settle in her stomach. Speaking of the wards, Dominic glanced at the phone, then at her face. What did they say? Nothing important. Elena. His voice held a warning. Remember our agreement. Honesty. She handed him the phone. He read the message, and his expression went glacial. They blame you for the attack. Of course they do. Everything is always my fault. That ends now. Dominic pulled out his own phone, typed rapidly. No one speaks to you like that. Not anymore. What are you doing? Making things clear. Within seconds, Elena's phone buzzed again. This time it was a group message. To her, Richard, Catherine, and Vanessa. This is Dominic Moretti. From this moment forward, any communication with my wife goes through me first. Any disrespect shown to Elena will be considered a personal insult to me and dealt with accordingly. I trust I've made myself clear. Elena stared at the message. You can't just... Her phone erupted with responses. Catherine's was diplomatic, apologizing for any misunderstanding. Richard's was stiff but compliant. Vanessa's was a single word. Fine. But Elena saw the rage beneath that single word, the jealousy, the hatred. You just made things worse, she said softly. No, I made things clear. There's a difference. Dominic set her phone down. Your family has spent years treating you like you don't matter. That changes today. They won't like being challenged. I don't care what they like. Elena looked up at this man who'd claimed her, protected her, obsessed over her for a decade. Why do you care so much? Really? It can't just be because of some girl you saw in a library 10 years ago. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw. Do you know what it's like to be invisible? To walk through the world and have no one see you, really see you? Yes, Elena whispered. I do. Then you understand. That day in the library, the first time I saw you, you were reading Rilke. Do you remember? Elena's eyes widened. She did remember. Letters to a young poet. She'd been 16, drowning in a house that would never feel like home. You dropped the book when the bell rang, Dominic continued. It fell open to a page you'd underlined. I picked it up after you left. The quote was, Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act just once with beauty and courage. Tears pricked Elena's eyes. She'd forgotten that, forgotten the girl who'd believed in beauty and courage. I kept that book, Dominic said. I have it in my office right now. And I thought, someday I'll be someone worthy of that girl's notice. Someday I'll be the person who sees her when everyone else looks away. Dominic, Elena didn't know what to say, didn't know how to process the enormity of what he was telling her. I don't expect you to love me, he said. Not yet, but I need you to believe that this, us, it's real for me. It's been real for 10 years, and I will burn down anyone who tries to hurt you. Before Elena could respond, Marco appeared in the doorway. Boss, we have a situation. Dominic's entire demeanor shifted. What kind of situation? The kind that requires your immediate attention. At the docks. Elena saw the tension ripple through Dominic's body. He turned to her. I have to go. Now? I'm sorry, but this can't wait. He moved toward the door, then paused and came back. Before Elena could react, he cupped her face and pressed a kiss to her forehead. Sleep. I'll be back before afternoon. And Elena? Yes? Thank you. For what? For not running. Yet. Then he was gone, Marco trailing behind him. Elena heard cars start, then fade into the distance. She was alone in a mansion that wasn't hers, married to a man who'd been watching her for 10 years, targeted by enemies she didn't understand. And somehow, impossibly, she didn't feel afraid. She felt seen. The next few days passed in a strange limbo. Dominic came and went at odd hours, always apologizing, always making sure Elena had everything she needed. They ate breakfast together when his schedule allowed. Quiet meals where they talked about books, music, anything except the violence that defined his world. Elena began exploring the estate. The library was enormous, filled with first editions and rare manuscripts. The gardens were immaculate, maintained by a staff she rarely saw but whose presence she felt everywhere. And the bedroom suite Dominic had given her was larger than the apartment she'd lived in during college. But it was in Dominic's study that she found the truth. She hadn't meant to snoop. She'd been looking for him to ask about dinner arrangements when she noticed the door slightly ajar. Inside, the room was all dark wood and leather, maps of the city covering one wall, screens showing security feeds on another. And on his desk, in a simple frame, was a photograph. Elena's hands trembled as she picked it up. It was her, younger, maybe 16, sitting in the Westfield Library window seat, reading, completely unaware she was being photographed. I took that the last day before you transferred out. Elena spun around. Dominic stood in the doorway, still in the suit he'd worn to whatever meeting had kept him out all day. You kept a picture of me, she said, for 10 years. I kept everything. Your school schedules, articles you wrote for the newspaper, a ticket stub from a movie you went to with friends once. He entered the room, his eyes never leaving her face. I told you, Elena, this has never been casual for me. This is... She struggled for words. Dominic, this is stalking. I know what it is, and you're not ashamed. No. He moved closer. I should be. I know that, but I'm not. Because every piece of information I gathered, every moment I watched from afar, it was all to protect you, to make sure you were safe, to prepare for the day when I could finally be part of your life. Elena set down the photograph with shaking hands. What if I had married someone else? What if I'd fallen in love with someone before you could orchestrate this arrangement? Something dangerous flickered across his face. Then I would have removed them from the equation. Removed them? You mean... I mean, Dominic said softly, that I've spent 10 years building an empire for one purpose, to be worthy of you. Anyone who threatened that would have been dealt with, permanently. Elena should run, should scream, should call someone, anyone, for help. Instead, she found herself asking, and if I want to leave now, walk away from this marriage? Dominic closed the distance between them in 2 strides. He didn't touch her, but his presence surrounded her like heat. Then I'd let you go. I'd make sure you had everything you needed. Money, protection, freedom. I'd watch from a distance and ensure no one ever hurt you. But I'd never stop loving you, Elena. Never stop hoping that someday you'd come back. You don't love me, she whispered. You love an idea, a girl from your past. I love the girl who underlined poetry about dragons and princesses. I love the woman who agreed to a loveless marriage to repay a debt to people who never deserved her loyalty. I love the wife who looked at a dead body on her wedding day and didn't break. I love every version of you, Elena, past, present, and future. Elena's breath caught. That's impossible. You can't love someone you don't know? Then let me know you. His hand came up, hovering near her face but not quite touching. Let me prove that what I feel is real. Give me a chance. Before Elena could answer, her phone rang. She glanced at it. Catherine Ward. Dominic's expression hardened. You don't have to answer. But Elena did. Some instinct told her this was important. Hello? Elena. Catherine's voice was clipped, cold. We need you at the house tomorrow evening. Family dinner. 7 sharp. Don't be late. I don't think... It wasn't a request. Richard has business to discuss with your husband. Bring him. The line went dead. Elena lowered the phone slowly. They want us for dinner tomorrow. Absolutely not. Dominic, I'm not taking you into that house. Not after how they've treated you. Not when they blamed you for an assassination attempt. If we don't go, it will cause problems. Let it cause problems. I have no interest in playing nice with people who see you as a commodity. Elena considered his words. Part of her wanted to agree, to never set foot in the Ward mansion again. But another part, the part that had survived 15 years in that house, knew that ignoring them would only make things worse. What if we go? She said slowly. Together. Not as their pawn, but as your wife. Show them the balance has shifted. Dominic studied her. You want to face them. I want them to see that I'm not alone anymore, that I have someone who... She paused, choosing words carefully. Someone who sees me. Something softened in Dominic's expression. If we do this, we do it my way. Full security. First sign of disrespect, we leave. And you stay by my side the entire time. Agreed. He reached out then, finally touching her. His fingers brushed her cheek, gentle despite the violence she knew those hands were capable of. You're braver than you think, Elena Moretti. The sound of her new name sent a shiver through her. Not fear. Something else entirely. That night, Elena lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. Through the connecting doors, she could hear Dominic moving around his room, getting ready for bed. She imagined him on the other side of the wall, just feet away. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Enjoy your new husband while you can. You don't deserve him. Some of us know how to appreciate real power. Elena stared at the message. The venom in it. The jealousy. Another text came through, this one with a photo attached. It showed Dominic at some charity gala, months before their wedding, with a beautiful blonde woman on his arm. This is who he really wants. You're just the obligation. Elena's stomach twisted. She knew she shouldn't care. This was a business arrangement. Dominic's past relationships didn't matter. Except he'd said he loved her. Claimed he'd waited 10 years. But what if that was a lie? What if the obsession was real, but the love was manufactured? She was still staring at the photo when her door opened. Dominic stood there in pajama pants and nothing else, his hair damp from a shower. Elena, I heard... He saw her face, cross the room in 3 strides. What's wrong? She handed him the phone wordlessly. His expression turned to stone as he read the messages. When did these come? Just now. The photo is from 6 months ago. A business function. The woman is Senator Harrison's daughter. I was gathering intelligence on her father's voting patterns. He sat beside her on the bed. I haven't touched another woman in 3 years, Elena. Not since I decided to make my move to bring you into my life. 3 years? I wanted to be completely free when you finally became mine. No entanglements, no divided attention. Elena looked at him, this dangerous, obsessive man who'd rearranged his entire life around someone he barely knew. Who sent these messages? I'll find out. He took her phone, forwarded the text to himself. Tomorrow. Tonight, I need you to believe me. There's no one else. There never has been, not since the day I saw you in that library. Dominic, this is... crazy? Obsessive? Unhealthy? A bitter smile crossed his face. I know what I am, Elena, but I also know that I will never lie to you. If you ask me a question, I'll tell you the truth, even when it makes me look like a monster. Are you? A monster? He held her gaze. To my enemies, yes. To people who threaten what's mine, absolutely. To you? His hand came up, cupped her face. Never. To you, I'm just a man who's been waiting his entire adult life for this moment. Elena's heart hammered in her chest. She should pull away, maintain distance, keep this relationship the business arrangement they'd both claimed it was. Instead, she heard herself say, Show me. Show you what? The book. The one I dropped. You said you kept it. Dominic's eyes widened slightly. Then he stood, held out his hand. Come with me. She took it. He led her through the connecting door into his bedroom, a space she hadn't entered before. It was masculine, clean, dominated by a massive bed and more windows overlooking the bay. But he took her to a bookshelf against the far wall, reached for a worn paperback. Letters to a Young Poet. The same edition she'd read at 16. Dominic opened it carefully, and Elena saw her own handwriting in the margins, notes she'd forgotten making, underlines in passages that had meant something to a lonely girl. You really kept it, she whispered. I kept everything that mattered. Elena traced her fingers over the page, over the quote about dragons and princesses. I was so different then. No, you just forgot who you were. The ward spent years trying to make you invisible. But I see you, Elena. I've always seen you. She looked up at him, this man who terrified the city, but spoke to her with such careful reverence. I don't know how to do this. How to be the wife you want. Then just be yourself. That's all I've ever wanted. Even if myself is still figuring out who that is. Especially then. He set the book aside, took both her hands. We have time, Elena. All the time in the world. I can wait. You've already waited 10 years. Then what's a little longer? His smile was soft, almost vulnerable. As long as you're here. As long as I get to see you every day, talk to you, learn who you're becoming, that's enough. Elena felt something shift in her chest, something dangerous and terrifying, and maybe, possibly, the beginning of trust. The dinner tomorrow, she said, at the ward house. What if it's a trap? Then I'll spring it and destroy everyone involved. He said it so matter-of-factly, like discussing the weather. But if you want to face them, I'll be right beside you. Always. That word. Always. Coming from a man who'd spent a decade orchestrating this moment. Elena squeezed his hands. Thank you. For what? For seeing me. Even when I couldn't see myself. Dominic pulled her close then, wrapped his arms around her in an embrace that felt like safety and danger all at once. Elena let herself lean into him just for a moment. Let herself believe that maybe, impossibly, this broken arrangement could become something real. Tomorrow, they would face the wards. Tomorrow, she would step back into the house that had never been home. But tonight, in the arms of a man who'd waited 10 years, Elena felt something she hadn't felt in longer than she could remember. She felt like she mattered. The ward mansion looked exactly as Elena remembered. Imposing, cold, designed to intimidate rather than welcome. As their car pulled through the iron gates, she felt Dominic's hand find hers in the darkness of the back seat. You're trembling, he said quietly. Elena hadn't realized. She forced her hands to still. I'm fine. We can leave right now. Turn around. You don't owe these people anything. I know. And she did know. But some part of her needed this. Needed to walk back into that house, not as the invisible girl who'd spent years trying to earn scraps of affection, but as Elena Moretti, wife of the most powerful man in the city. The car stopped. Marco emerged from the vehicle ahead of theirs, along with 3 other security personnel. Dominic had insisted on bringing his full detail despite Richard's protests about it being a simple family dinner. Nothing with your family is simple, Dominic had said that morning while getting dressed. Elena had watched from the doorway of his bedroom as he'd selected a charcoal suit, his movements precise and controlled. They want something. The question is what? Now standing on the marble steps of her former home, Elena understood exactly what they wanted. Control. The same thing they'd always wanted. The front door opened before they could knock. Catherine stood there in an ice blue dress, her smile perfectly calibrated, warm enough to appear welcoming, cold enough to remind Elena of her place. "Elena, Mr. Moretti, please, come in." The foyer hadn't changed. Same crystal chandelier, same portrait of Richard's grandfather glowering from the wall, same cold perfection that had never felt like home. "The family is gathering in the west parlor," Catherine said, leading them through familiar hallways. "Richard is so pleased you could make it." Elena felt Dominic's hand at the small of her back, warm and steady, a reminder that she wasn't alone this time. They entered the parlor to find Richard standing by the fireplace, nursing a scotch. Vanessa sat on the sofa, her expression carefully neutral, but Elena saw the flash of something ugly in her eyes when she looked at Dominic. "Ah, the happy couple," Richard said, setting down his glass. "Welcome. Please, sit." "We'll stand," Dominic replied, his tone pleasant but immovable. Richard's smile tightened. "Of course. Well then, let's not waste time with pleasantries. I'm sure you're both busy people." "Get to the point, Richard," Dominic said. Elena watched her adoptive father's face redden slightly. He wasn't used to being addressed so directly, especially in his own home. "Very well, as I'm sure you're aware, the Volkov situation has created certain complications. The attempted assassination at your wedding has drawn unwanted attention from various regulatory bodies. Questions are being asked." "Questions I'm more than capable of answering," Dominic said. "Perhaps, but the ward name is also involved now. Elena is still technically a member of this family. Her safety, or lack thereof, reflects on us." Elena felt anger spark in her chest. "You're worried about your reputation." "Don't be naive, Elena," Vanessa interjected. "Everything is about reputation. Something you'd understand if you'd ever bothered to learn how this world actually works." "Vanessa," Catherine warned, but her daughter ignored her. "No, Mother. Someone needs to say it. Elena spent years hiding in her room, reading books, acting like she was too good for the rest of us. And now she lands the most eligible bachelor in the city, and suddenly she's playing queen." "That's enough," Dominic's voice cut through the room like a blade. Vanessa's eyes widened. "Excuse me? You heard me. You'll speak to my wife with respect, or you won't speak at all." "Your wife?" Vanessa laughed, but there was an edge of hysteria in it. "Is that what she is? Or is she just the convenient pawn you needed to legitimize your criminal empire?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Dominic took a step forward, and Elena saw Richard's hand move subtly toward the desk drawer where she knew he kept a gun. "Dominic," Elena said softly, touching his arm. "It's fine." "It's not fine." He didn't look away from Vanessa. "I gave one warning already. Anyone who disrespects Elena becomes my enemy. Did you think I was being metaphorical?" "You can't threaten us in our own home," Richard said, his voice hard. "I'm not threatening. I'm clarifying." Dominic turned to face him. "You called this meeting, Richard. You wanted to discuss complications. So let's discuss them. The Volkov situation is handled. Victor is currently being very cooperative about naming his associates and backers. By tomorrow, everyone involved in the attempt on Elena's life will be neutralized." "Neutralized," Catherine repeated faintly. "Yes, permanently." Dominic's expression didn't change. "As for the regulatory attention you're so concerned about, that's your problem, not mine. You wanted to link your family to my empire. This is what that looks like. You don't get the benefits without accepting the risks." "We could dissolve the marriage," Richard said. "Annulment. Claim it was never consummated. That would sever the connection cleanly." Elena felt her stomach drop. Of course. They wanted out. Wanted to distance themselves now that association with Dominic came with actual danger instead of just abstract power. But before she could speak, Dominic laughed. The sound was genuinely amused, which somehow made it more terrifying. "You think I'd let you dissolve this marriage? You think I orchestrated this entire arrangement just to let you tear it apart when it became inconvenient?" "You orchestrated?" Richard's eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" "It means," Dominic said softly, "that when you were looking for potential husbands for Elena, every serious candidate mysteriously withdrew. Business deals fell through. Scandals emerged. Convenient accidents. Until I was the only viable option left. Did you really think that was coincidence? The silence that followed was absolute. Elena stared at Dominic, watching him confirm what he'd already told her. But hearing him say it to her family made it real in a new way. You manipulated us, Catherine whispered. I ensured the outcome I wanted, just like you've been doing to Elena for 15 years. Dominic's voice was calm, factual. The difference is, my manipulation ended with her becoming the most protected woman in this city. Yours ended with her believing she was worthless. How dare you, Gus? Richard started. Sit down. The command was quiet but absolute. Richard actually took a step back, his face going pale. Here's what's going to happen, Dominic continued. Elena is my wife. That's not changing. Ever. You will treat her with respect. You will stop using her as a pawn in your political games. And you will never, ever suggest dissolving our marriage again. And if we refuse, Vanessa asked, her voice shaking, then you'll discover exactly how creative I can be when people threaten what's mine. Dominic's smile was cold. I've built an empire on knowing people's secrets, Vanessa. Every single person in this room has something they'd prefer stayed hidden. Test me, and you'll find out what happens when those secrets go public. Elena watched her family's faces drain of color. What did Dominic know? What had he uncovered in his years of watching, planning, preparing? This is extortion, Richard said, but his voice had lost its authority. This is protection. Elena's protection, which is more than any of you ever offered her. Catherine stood, her composure cracking. We gave her everything. A home, an education, opportunities. You gave her survival, Elena said quietly, surprising herself. All eyes turned to her. You gave me a roof over my head and just enough care to ease your consciences. But you never gave me a family. You never made me feel like I belonged. Elena, Catherine started. No. Let me finish. Elena stepped forward, feeling Dominic's presence behind her like a shield. I spent 15 years trying to earn your love, being quiet, being grateful, being whatever you needed me to be. And it was never enough. I was never enough. Not like Vanessa, not like a real daughter. That's not true, Catherine said, but her eyes wouldn't meet Elena's. It is true. And I accepted it. I accepted that I was the charity case, the obligation, the girl you took in because it looked good. But that's over now. Elena's voice grew stronger. I'm not that invisible girl anymore. I'm Dominic Moretti's wife. And if you can't treat me with basic respect, then we're done. All of us. Vanessa stood abruptly. You think you're so special now? You think marrying a criminal makes you better than us? I think, Elena said carefully, that I finally found someone who sees me as more than a tool, more than an obligation, more than invisible. He doesn't love you, Vanessa spat. Men like him don't love. They possess. They own. You're just his latest acquisition. That's where you're wrong. Everyone turned to look at Dominic. He moved to Elena's side, took her hand in his. I've loved Elena for 10 years, he said, his eyes never leaving Vanessa's face. Since we were teenagers. Since before any of you even knew she existed. I've watched her, protected her from a distance, built everything I have with one goal in mind, becoming worthy of her. So no, Vanessa, she's not an acquisition. She's the entire reason I built this empire in the first place. The confession hung in the air like a bomb. That's insane, Richard said finally. Probably, Dominic agreed, but it's the truth. Elena is the only woman I've ever loved, the only one I'll ever love. And anyone who tries to come between us will regret it. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. He'd said it before, privately, but hearing him declare it here, in front of her family, knowing the cost of such vulnerability, it broke something open in her chest. We should go, she said softly. Dominic nodded. Agreed. This conversation is over. They turned toward the door, but Vanessa's voice stopped them. You'll regret this, Elena. Both of you. You think you've won? You think this ends here? You have no idea what's coming. Dominic turned back slowly. Is that a threat? It's a promise, Vanessa said, her beautiful face twisted with rage. You took everything from me. The attention, the power, the man who was supposed to elevate our family. I won't forget that. Vanessa, be quiet, Richard snapped, fear evident in his voice. But Vanessa was beyond caring. Why should I? What's he gonna do? Kill me? We're not one of his criminal associates. You're nothing, Dominic said softly. You're a spoiled girl who's never been told no, who's never had to work for anything, who thinks beauty and manipulation are substitutes for actual worth. Elena has more strength in her little finger than you'll ever possess. Get out, Catherine said, her voice shaking. Both of you, get out of our house. Gladly, Elena said. She walked toward the door with her head high, Dominic beside her, his hand warm on her back. They were almost to the foyer when they heard the crash. Glass shattering. Vanessa screaming something incoherent, Catherine trying to calm her daughter while Richard shouted for everyone to calm down. Marco met them at the front door, his expression carefully neutral. Everything all right, boss? Fine, Dominic said. Let's go. The drive back to the estate was silent. Elena stared out the window at the city lights, processing everything that had happened. The threats, the revelations, the way Dominic had defended her without hesitation. I'm sorry, she said finally. Dominic turned to her. For what? For dragging you into that mess. For making you deal with my toxic family. Elena, look at me. She did. His dark eyes were intense in the dim light of the car. You didn't drag me anywhere. I chose this. I chose you. And I'd do it again, 1,000 times over, without hesitation. Even knowing how complicated it would be? Especially knowing that. His hand found hers. You're worth every complication, every threat, every moment of chaos. Do you understand that? Elena felt a tear slip down her cheek. I'm trying to. Then try harder. But his voice was gentle. Because I meant what I said in there. Every word. I've loved you for 10 years, Elena. That's not going to change just because your family is difficult. They hate me now. They hated you before. They just hid it better. Elena laughed despite herself. That's dark. It's true. Dominic squeezed her hand. But you don't need them anymore. You have me. You have a home where you're wanted, where you're seen. Do I? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Really see me, I mean? Or do you see that girl from the library? The one you built fantasies around? Dominic was quiet for a moment. You want honesty? Always. At first, yes. I saw the girl from the library, the one who made me believe that beauty and sadness could exist in the same person, who made me want to be better, stronger, worthy. He paused. But these past few days, Elena, I'm seeing you, the woman you've become, and she's even more remarkable than the girl I remembered. How can you say that? You barely know me. Then let me know you better. Let me learn your favorite foods, your secret dreams, the things that make you laugh. Let me discover who you are now, not just who you were then. Elena studied his face in the darkness. What if you don't like what you find? Impossible. You sound very certain. I am certain. Because I see how you handle fear, with grace instead of hysteria. How you face your family, with honesty instead of manipulation. How you treat my staff, with kindness instead of superiority. Every piece of you I discover makes me love you more. The car pulled up to the estate. Through the windows, Elena could see the lights burning warm against the night sky. Home. When had she started thinking of it that way? Inside, Teresa met them with concerned eyes. How was dinner? Educational, Dominic said dryly. Has there been any communication from the wards? 3 calls from Mrs. Ward, 2 from Vanessa, 1 from Richard. Teresa handed him a stack of message slips, all marked urgent. Dominic glanced at them, then tore them in half. From now on, all ward communications go through Marco for vetting. If it's not a genuine emergency, I don't want to hear about it. Understood, sir. Teresa turned to Elena. There's also a package for you, Mrs. Moretti. It arrived by courier an hour ago. A package? From who? No return address, but it passed security screening. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Where is it? In your sitting room. They climbed the stairs together, Dominic's hand never leaving the small of her back. In Elena's sitting room, a cozy space she'd begun filling with books and art, sat a small box wrapped in plain brown paper. Dominic examined it carefully before allowing Elena to touch it. No wires, no chemical signatures. Looks safe. Elena opened it slowly. Inside was a single photograph and a handwritten note. The photograph showed Dominic from several years ago, standing outside a restaurant with the same blonde woman from the earlier texts. But this time, they were kissing. Elena's hands trembled as she picked up the note. He'll never truly want you. You're just the obsession, the fantasy. But she was real. Ask him about Sarah. Ask him why he really let her go. Then you'll understand you're nothing but a replacement for the woman who got away. Let me see that, Dominic said, his voice deadly quiet. Elena handed him the note. She watched his face as he read it, saw fury flash across his features. Who's Sarah? Elena heard herself ask. Dominic set down the note carefully, like he was afraid he might tear it apart. She was a mistake. Someone I dated briefly 4 years ago, before I fully committed to bringing you into my life. The note says you let her go, that I'm a replacement. That's a lie. Dominic turned to face her fully. I ended things with Sarah because I realized I was using her as a distraction, a way to pass time until I could have you. It wasn't fair to her, and I broke it off cleanly. But you cared about her. I cared about not being alone. There's a difference. He moved closer. Elena, look at me. Sarah was never real. What I felt for her was never real. She was a placeholder, a way to convince myself I could move on from you. But I couldn't. I can't. You're not a replacement for anyone. You're the original, the only one who ever mattered. Elena wanted to believe him, but doubt had taken root, fed by years of being second choice, second best, second to Vanessa in every way that mattered. How do I know that's true? She whispered. Because if I wanted Sarah, I would have married her. If I wanted anyone else, I would have chosen them. But I didn't, Elena. I waited. I planned. I orchestrated an entire marriage arrangement just to have you. Do you really think I'd go through all that trouble for a replacement? People do crazy things to avoid being alone. Yes, they do. But that's not what this is. Dominic cupped her face in his hands. I'm not afraid of being alone, Elena. I'm afraid of being without you. There's a difference. A knock on the door interrupted them. Marco stood there, his expression grim. Boss. We found the courier who delivered the package, hired off TaskRabbit, paid in cash, never saw the client's face. But we traced the payment method. The money came from an account linked to Vanessa Ward. Elena felt something cold settle in her chest. Vanessa sent this? Looks that way. She's trying to create distance between you and Dominic. Classic manipulation tactic. She's trying to destroy my marriage, Elena said softly. She's trying, Dominic corrected. She won't succeed, Marco. I want surveillance on all the wards. Every communication, every movement, every transaction. If Vanessa is planning something, I want to know about it before she acts. Already on it, boss. After Marco left, Elena sank onto the sofa. This is going to get worse, isn't it? The threats? The manipulation? The games? Probably, Dominic admitted. He sat beside her, close but not touching. Vanessa feels threatened. People do dangerous things when they're threatened. She's not dangerous, she's just spoiled. Spoiled people with resources can be the most dangerous of all. They have money to hire others to do their dirty work, connections to make problems appear, and just enough intelligence to be creative about causing harm. Elena looked at the photograph still lying on the table. Sarah, the blonde woman who'd been real while Elena was still just a fantasy. Tell me about her, she said quietly. Sarah, tell me the truth. Dominic sighed. Her name was Sarah Mitchell, daughter of a corporate lawyer. We met at a charity function. She was smart, beautiful, uncomplicated. We dated for 6 months. Why did it end? Because she asked me to marry her, and I realized I couldn't. Every time I looked at her, I was comparing her to you, wondering what you were doing, where you were, if you were safe. It wasn't fair to either of us. Did you love her? I wanted to. I tried to convince myself I did. But no, I didn't love her. I barely even knew her, really. We were playing at being a couple, but my heart was never in it. And she knew that you were thinking of someone else? Eventually, She called me on it during our last fight, said I was emotionally unavailable, that I was holding back, that she felt like she was competing with a ghost. Dominic's laugh was bitter. She had no idea how right she was. Elena absorbed this. Do you regret it? Ending things with her? I regret hurting her. She deserved better than what I could offer. But do I regret choosing you instead? Never. You didn't choose me. You chose the idea of me. Stop saying that. Dominic's voice was sharp. You keep acting like what I feel isn't real. Like 10 years of waiting, of planning, of building everything I have around the goal of being with you. Like that's somehow less valid than what other people call love. It's obsession, Dominic. Maybe. But it's also devotion, loyalty, a commitment that goes deeper than what most people ever experience. And I'm tired of apologizing for it. Elena stood, moved to the window. The bay stretched out below them, dark water reflecting city lights. What if I can't give you what you want? What if I'm not the woman you've built up in your head? Then I'll love whoever you actually are instead. He came to stand behind her. Elena, you keep waiting for me to be disappointed, to realize you're not perfect. But I never expected perfect. I expected you. You don't know me well enough to expect anything. Then help me know you. His hand settled on her shoulders, warm and steady. Stop hiding. Stop assuming I'm going to reject you. Actually, let me in. Elena closed her eyes. I'm scared. Of what? That you'll see who I really am and realize the girl from the library was better, more interesting, more worth the wait. That's impossible. You keep saying that. Because it's true. He turned her gently to face him. The girl from the library was sad and lonely and trying to disappear. The woman in front of me is brave enough to walk into her toxic family's home and demand respect. Strong enough to marry a stranger to repay a debt. Honest enough to admit when she's scared. How could I possibly prefer the ghost to the reality? A tear slipped down Elena's cheek. I don't know how to do this. How to trust that you mean what you say. Then don't trust me yet. Just stay. Stay and let me prove it, day by day, moment by moment, until you believe me. And if Vanessa keeps attacking, keeps trying to tear us apart, something dangerous flickered in Dominic's eyes. Then I'll handle Vanessa, permanently, if necessary. Dominic, I won't kill her, he said, reading her expression. Not unless she actually threatens your life. But I can make her regret every choice that led her to this point. I can make her understand that you are untouchable. Elena should have been horrified, should have begged him to show mercy, to be the bigger person. Instead, she found herself asking, how? Dominic smiled, slow and dangerous. Leave that to me. But I promise you this, Elena. By the time I'm done, Vanessa will never bother you again. None of them will. What are you going to do? What I do best. Protect what's mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it sent a strange thrill down her spine. For the first time in her life, someone was willing to fight for her. Not because she was useful, but because she mattered. I should probably tell you not to, Elena said softly. Probably. But I'm not going to. No? She met his dark eyes. No. Because I'm tired of being the one who gets hurt. Tired of being the one who has to be understanding, forgiving, grateful for scraps. Maybe it's time someone else felt powerless for a change. Dominic's expression shifted, something like pride crossing his features. There she is. Who? The woman who's been hiding under all that practiced invisibility. The one who's angry and hurt and done being stepped on. He pulled her closer. I've been waiting to meet her. Elena felt something break loose in her chest. All the years of swallowing her anger, her pain, her needs, maybe it was time to stop. Maybe it was time to let herself want something, want someone, want the dangerous man who'd spent 10 years orchestrating this moment. Stay with me tonight, she heard herself say. Not in your room, here. Just stay. Dominic's eyes searched hers. Elena, I'm not asking for anything physical. I just don't want to be alone. Not tonight. Not after everything. He nodded slowly. Okay. Whatever you need. They ended up on the sofa, Elena curled against Dominic's side, his arm around her shoulders. It should have felt awkward, strange. Instead, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Tell me something true, Elena said quietly. Something no one else knows about you. Dominic was quiet for a moment. I'm afraid of losing you before I ever really have you. That's my greatest fear. Not death, not failure, not losing my empire, just losing you. That's a lot of pressure to put on one person. I know, but you asked for truth. Elena considered this. I'm afraid of the same thing, of losing this, whatever this is, before I figure out what it means. Then maybe we're both afraid of the same thing. That this moment right here, right now, is as good as it gets, and everything after will be disappointment. Is that what you believe? No. His arm tightened around her. I believe this is just the beginning. That every day I'll discover something new about you that makes me love you more. That we'll build something real together, not just a fantasy. Oh, that's optimistic for someone in your line of work. Love makes optimists of us all. Elena tilted her head back to look at him. You really love me? Not the idea of me, but me? Yes, Elena. I really love you. The woman who challenges me, who questions everything, who's afraid but brave anyway. That's who I love. She studied his face in the dim light, the sharp features that had terrified her a week ago, the dark eyes that now looked at her with such careful tenderness. I don't love you yet, she said honestly, but I think I could, if you give me time. I've already given you 10 years. What's a little more? Elena smiled despite everything. Despite the threats from Vanessa, the toxicity of her family, the complications of marrying a man whose world was built on violence. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For seeing me, for not giving up, for being patient with someone who doesn't quite know how to trust yet. Dominic pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Get some sleep, Elena. Tomorrow, we start fighting back. Against Vanessa? Against anyone who tries to come between us. Elena closed her eyes, feeling safe for the first time in longer than she could remember. Outside, the city hummed with danger and possibility. Vanessa was plotting. The wards were calculating their next move. And somewhere out there, Victor Volkov's associates were learning what happened to people who threatened Dominic Moretti's wife. But here, in this moment, wrapped in the arms of a man who'd waited a decade for her, Elena felt something she'd never expected to feel in an arranged marriage. She felt hope. Elena woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the warmth of Dominic's arm still around her. Sometime during the night, they'd shifted. Her head now rested on his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. For a moment, she lay perfectly still, afraid that moving would break the spell of this unexpected peace. You're awake, Dominic said quietly, his voice rough with sleep. How did you know? Your breathing changed. His hand moved to her hair, fingers threading through the dark strands with surprising gentleness. Did you sleep well? Better than I have in weeks. Elena sat up slowly, immediately missing his warmth. What time is it? Almost 9. I told Teresa not to disturb us. Reality came crashing back. Vanessa's threats, the photograph, the promise of retribution hanging in the air between them. You're thinking too much, Dominic said, watching her face. I can see it. How can I not? Yesterday, my sister sent me photos trying to convince me you're still in love with someone else. My family wants to dissolve our marriage, and you promised to make them all regret it. And I will. He stood, stretching, and Elena tried not to notice the way his shirt had come untucked during the night, revealing a strip of tanned skin. But first, breakfast. You can't face your enemies on an empty stomach. They ate on the terrace overlooking the bay, a spread that Teresa had somehow prepared without waking them. Fresh fruit, pastries, eggs Benedict, and coffee so strong it could wake the dead. Elena found herself actually hungry for the first time since the wedding. I need to ask you something, she said, setting down her fork. And I need you to be completely honest. Dominic's expression grew serious. Always. The night of our wedding, the attempt on my life. You said it was Victor Volkov sending a message. But what if it was someone else? Someone closer to home? You think your family was involved? Vanessa hates me. She made that clear yesterday. And she has resources, connections. What if she hired Volkov's people to make it look like his attack? Dominic was quiet for a moment, his dark eyes studying her. I had the same thought. Marco's been investigating. And? The man who died on our wedding day had no connection to your family. But the harassment you've been receiving, the texts, the photograph, that's definitely Vanessa. She's sloppy when she's angry, left too many digital traces. So what are you going to do about it? That depends. Dominic leaned forward. How far do you want me to go? Elena met his gaze. A week ago, she would have begged for mercy, for understanding, for the moral high ground. But a week ago, she'd still been the invisible girl who apologized for taking up space. I want her to understand that I'm not powerless anymore, Elena said slowly. I want her to feel what I felt for 15 years, insignificant, overlooked, outmatched. Something dangerous and approving flickered in Dominic's eyes. Consider it done. Before Elena could ask what he meant, Marco appeared on the terrace, his expression grim. Boss, we have a situation. What kind? The kind that requires your immediate attention. Richard Ward just called an emergency board meeting at Ward Industries. He's moving to restructure the company's leadership. Dominic's jaw tightened. He's trying to distance the company from me. Looks that way. He's claiming recent events have made the Moretti alliance too volatile. He wants to sever all business connections. Elena felt ice settle in her stomach. Can he do that? Legally? Yes. The marriage contract didn't include permanent business arrangements. Marco glanced at Elena. But there's more. Vanessa is there. She's been talking to the board members privately, making claims about Elena. What kind of claims? Elena asked, though she already knew the answer would hurt. That you seduced Dominic deliberately, that you're using him to gain power and eventually betray the family, that you've always been manipulative and calculating, just better at hiding it than anyone realized. Elena laughed, but there was no humor in it. Of course she is. I'm the villain in her story, the ungrateful charity case who stole her spotlight. She's also claiming, Marco continued reluctantly, that you're not actually Richard and Catherine's adopted daughter, that you manipulated your way into the family years ago with false documentation. Elena's coffee cup clattered against the saucer. That's insane. I was 9 years old when they took me in. How could I have possibly... It doesn't matter if it's true, Dominic cut in, his voice deadly calm. It matters if the board believes it. If they think Elena's position in the Ward family is fraudulent, they'll use it to invalidate our marriage alliance entirely. Can they actually prove anything? Elena asked. Marco shook his head. Not without access to sealed adoption records. But Vanessa doesn't need proof. She just needs doubt. And she's very good at creating doubt. Dominic stood abruptly. Get the car. We're going to that board meeting. Dominic, wait, Elena began. No. He turned to her, his expression fierce. They want to play games? Fine. But they're going to learn that attacking my wife is the same as attacking me, and I don't lose. 30 minutes later, Elena found herself walking into Ward Industries headquarters for the first time since her wedding. The building was all glass and steel, a monument to Richard's ambition and the family's old money legacy. She'd been here exactly once before, years ago, when Catherine had given her a tour and made it abundantly clear that Elena would never have a real place in the company. Now she walked through the marble lobby with Dominic's hand at her back and Marco flanking them, and every employee they passed stopped and stared. Mrs. Moretti, the receptionist stammered. We weren't expecting... Where's the board meeting? Dominic asked, his tone allowing no argument. 20th floor, but sir, it's a closed session. Not anymore. They took the private elevator, rising in silence. Elena could feel her heart hammering against her ribs. What was Dominic planning? Storming a board meeting wasn't exactly subtle. Whatever happens in there, Dominic said quietly, stay close to me. Let me handle your family. Don't defend yourself. It makes you look guilty. Just stand there and let them reveal who they really are. What if they have actual evidence? What if Vanessa found something? She didn't, because there's nothing to find. You are Richard and Catherine's legal adopted daughter. I've already verified the paperwork myself. He smiled slightly. Did you think I'd marry you without checking every detail of your background? That's oddly comforting and creepy at the same time. Welcome to being married to me. The elevator doors opened onto chaos. Raised voices echoed from the boardroom at the end of the hall. Through the glass walls, Elena could see the full board assembled. 15 people in expensive suits, all looking agitated. Richard stood at the head of the table, his face red. Vanessa sat beside him, her expression carefully composed but her eyes bright with triumph. Dominic didn't knock. He simply opened the door and walked in, Elena beside him. The room fell silent. "Mr. Moretti," Richard said, his voice strained. "This is a private meeting. Not when you're discussing my wife." Dominic pulled out a chair for Elena at the opposite end of the table from Richard. She sat, feeling every eye in the room on her. "Please continue. I'm fascinated to hear what Vanessa has been telling you." "This is highly irregular," one of the board members sputtered. "We have protocols." "Protocols?" Dominic's smile was cold. "Like the protocol of spreading unsubstantiated lies about a woman who's done nothing but serve this family faithfully for 15 years? Vanessa stood, her voice honey-sweet with false concern. "No one is spreading lies, Dominic. We're simply raising questions about Elena's legal status within the family, questions that should have been addressed years ago." "Questions," Dominic repeated. "Based on what evidence?" "Based on inconsistencies in the adoption records, gaps in the timeline, questions about how a 9-year-old orphan from nowhere suddenly became a ward." Vanessa's eyes glittered. "Surely even you, with all your resources, found those inconsistencies curious." "I did," Dominic agreed, "which is why I investigated thoroughly. Would you like to know what I found?" The room held its breath. "I found that Elena was orphaned at age 8 when her parents died in a car accident. That she spent 11 months in the state system before Catherine and Richard completed the adoption process. That every piece of paperwork was filed correctly and legally. That there are no gaps, no inconsistencies, and no fraud." He paused, letting that sink in. "What I also found," he continued softly, "was extremely interesting information about you, Vanessa. About the campaign donations you've been funneling to Senator Harrison through shell companies. About the insider trading tips you've been receiving from your boyfriend at the SEC. And about the very illegal agreement you made with Viktor Volkov 3 weeks before my wedding." The color drained from Vanessa's face. "I don't know what you're—" "Don't!" Dominic's voice cut like a knife. "Don't insult my intelligence by lying. I have records of every transaction, every communication, every secret deal you thought was hidden. Victor contacted you after he heard about my engagement to Elena. He offered you money and power if you could create chaos in my organization, and you agreed." Elena felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. "You knew about the assassination attempt?" "Not specifically," Dominic said, his eyes never leaving Vanessa. "But I knew she was working with Volkov. I've been watching, waiting to see how far she'd go. Turns out, pretty far." Richard stood, his hand shaking. "Vanessa, tell me this isn't true." "Father, he's lying." "Am I?" Dominic nodded to Marco, who placed a tablet on the conference table. "See for yourself, bank statements, email records, phone logs, all verified by independent forensic accountants. Your daughter has been colluding with my enemies for months." Vanessa's carefully composed mask cracked. "You bastard! You set me up!" "No, I gave you enough rope to hang yourself. There's a difference." Dominic turned to Richard. "Now let's talk about this emergency board meeting. This sudden desire to sever connections with my organization. I assume Vanessa convinced you it was necessary?" Richard's face had gone gray. "She said you were too dangerous, that the Volkov situation proved our family was at risk." "The Volkov situation that she helped create?" Dominic's voice was dangerously soft. "The assassination attempt that she facilitated by providing information about Elena's schedule, her security details, her vulnerabilities?" Elena's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the table, willing herself to stay calm. Vanessa had tried to have her killed. Her own sister had conspired with enemies to orchestrate her death. "I want her arrested," Elena heard herself say. Her voice was steady, cold. "She tried to murder me. That's attempted homicide. She should be in prison." "Elena, please," Catherine started, but Elena cut her off. "Don't. Don't you dare ask me to forgive this. Don't ask me to understand. She tried to kill me because she was jealous that I married someone powerful, because for once in my life I had something she wanted." Tears streamed down Catherine's face. "She's still family." "She's a criminal," Dominic said flatly, "and she'll be treated as one. Marco, call our lawyers. I want charges filed within the hour. Wait, Richard said desperately. Please, Dominic, I'm begging you. Let us handle this internally. We'll cut her off, send her away. She'll never bother Elena again. But please don't destroy her life over this. Destroy her life? Elena stood, her voice shaking with fury. She tried to destroy mine, actually destroy it, as in end it, forever. And you want me to just let that go because we share a last name that I never even really earned? You're our daughter, Catherine sobbed. No, I'm not. I never was. I was the good deed that made you feel virtuous, the charity case that gave you social credit. But I was never actually family. Vanessa made sure I understood that every single day for 15 years. Elena turned to face her sister. Vanessa sat frozen, her beautiful face streaked with tears, her hands clenched on the armrests. You want to know the worst part? Elena said quietly. I would have given you anything. If you'd just been kind to me, if you just treated me like a sister, I would have happily stayed invisible. I would have supported you, celebrated you, never competed with you. All I ever wanted was to belong, and you couldn't even give me that. You took everything from me, Vanessa whispered. You came into our house and took my parents' attention, my inheritance, my place. I took nothing. I was given scraps and told to be grateful. You had everything, their love, their pride, their complete devotion, and it still wasn't enough. You had to make sure I knew I was worthless too. The boardroom was silent except for Catherine's quiet crying. Here's what's going to happen, Dominic said, his voice cutting through the emotion like ice. Vanessa will be arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit murder, among other charges. The evidence is overwhelming. She'll likely spend the next 20 years in prison. Unless? Richard asked desperately. There is no unless. This isn't a negotiation. Dominic's eyes were cold. Your daughter tried to kill my wife. That crime has consequences. Please, Catherine begged. I'm her mother. You should have been Elena's mother, Dominic said. You should have protected her, loved her, made her feel safe. Instead, you stood by while Vanessa tormented her, while your husband treated her like a business asset. You created this situation. Now you'll live with the consequences. He turned to the board members who'd been watching the family drama unfold with horrified fascination. As for this meeting and your plans to distance the company from Moretti Enterprises, that's no longer an option. I own 42% of Ward Industries shares through various holding companies. As of this morning, I'm the majority shareholder. Richard, you're out as CEO. The board will be restructured, and every business decision will now go through me. Richard's face went white. You've been buying our shares? For the past 3 years, slowly, carefully, through enough different entities that you'd never notice until it was too late. Dominic smiled, and there was no warmth in it. Did you really think I'd let my wife's family maintain any power over her? I've been planning this since the day I decided to marry Elena. Elena stared at him. You own my family's company? I own the majority of it, and now I'm going to reshape it into something that actually deserves the Ward name. He stood, helped Elena to her feet. We're done here. Marco, make sure the police are waiting downstairs for Vanessa. Dominic, please! Vanessa lunged forward, desperation replacing her earlier venom. I'm sorry. I didn't think. I wasn't trying to actually kill her. I just wanted to scare her, to make you doubt. You hired an assassin, Elena said coldly. What did you think would happen? I didn't know he was going to use poison. Volkov said it would just be a warning, a close call to make Dominic paranoid. Stop talking, Richard snapped at his daughter. For once in your life, stop talking. But it was too late. Vanessa had confessed in front of a room full of witnesses. As they walked toward the elevator, Elena heard Catherine calling her name. She turned to see her adoptive mother standing in the hallway, mascara running down her face. Elena, please, we made mistakes. I know we did, but we never wanted this. We never wanted you hurt. You just never wanted me, period, Elena said quietly. And that's fine, I've made peace with it. But don't pretend this is a tragedy you didn't help create. If you testify against Vanessa, she'll go to prison. Good. Maybe she'll finally understand that actions have consequences. She's my daughter, Catherine whispered, and I was supposed to be your daughter too. But you made it very clear where your loyalties lay. Elena felt Dominic's hand on her back, steady and supportive. I hope she was worth it. In the car, Elena finally let herself break. Tears she'd been holding back for years poured out in harsh, choking sobs. Dominic pulled her against his chest, his arms wrapped tight around her, murmuring words she couldn't quite hear but felt in her bones. "I'm sorry," she gasped between sobs. "I'm sorry. I should be stronger. You are strong, the strongest person I know. But even strong people need to break sometimes. She tried to kill me. My own sister tried to kill me." "I know, love, I know." The endearment made Elena cry harder. Love. When was the last time someone had called her that and meant it? "I want to go home," she whispered. "To the estate?" "No, to... there's a place. Where I lived before the Wards adopted me. The people who took care of me those 11 months. Elena pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I need to see them. I need to remember what family is supposed to feel like." Dominic studied her face, then nodded. "Tell Marco where to go." The address was in a modest neighborhood 40 minutes from the city center. Small houses with tidy yards, the kind of place where people still knew their neighbors' names. The car looked absurdly out of place on the quiet street. "Wait here," Elena told the security detail. "I need to do this alone." "Elena," Dominic started, "please, just give me 20 minutes." She saw the struggle on his face, the protective instinct warring with respect for her autonomy. Finally, he nodded. 20 minutes. Then I'm coming to find you." The house looked exactly as Elena remembered. White paint, blue shutters, a garden full of vegetables in the side yard. She walked up the path on shaking legs and knocked. The woman who answered was older now, her hair more gray than brown, but her face still held the same warmth Elena remembered from her childhood. "Can I help you?" she asked. Then her eyes widened. "Elena, is that you?" "Hi, Mrs. Chen." Elena's voice cracked. "I'm sorry to just show up like this. I should have called." She didn't get to finish. Mrs. Chen pulled her into a fierce hug, the kind of embrace that felt like coming home. "David!" Mrs. Chen called into the house. "David, come quick! It's Elena!" Mr. Chen appeared in the doorway, older and grayer, but still with the same gentle smile. "Little Elena, look at you, all grown up." They ushered her inside into a living room that smelled like jasmine tea and old books. The furniture was worn but comfortable. Photos covered every surface, including, Elena noticed with a jolt, several of her from those 11 months she'd lived with them. "We followed your life," Mrs. Chen said, seeing where Elena was looking. "The Wards sent us updates sometimes. We knew you'd married recently. That man in the news... Moretti?" "Dominic, yes, he's waiting in the car, actually." "Bring him in. What are you thinking, leaving your husband in the car?" But Elena shook her head. "I needed to see you first, without anyone else. I needed to remember..." She swallowed hard. "I needed to remember what it felt like when people were kind to me because they wanted to be, not because they had to be." Understanding dawned in Mrs. Chen's eyes. She took Elena's hands. "The Wards weren't good to you. They gave me everything I needed and nothing I wanted." "Oh, sweetheart." Mrs. Chen pulled her close again. "We wanted to keep you, you know. We petitioned the court. But the Wards had money, influence. The judge said you'd have better opportunities with them." Elena's heart stopped. "You wanted to adopt me?" "Of course we did. You were ours for 11 months. We loved you like you were our own daughter. When they took you away..." Mrs. Chen's voice broke. "It broke our hearts. But we thought we were doing what was best for you." "I didn't know," Elena whispered. "All this time I thought nobody wanted me. I thought the Wards took me in out of obligation and everyone else had just forgotten I existed." "Never," Mr. Chen said firmly. "We thought about you every day, prayed you were happy, hoped the Wards were treating you well." "They weren't cruel," Elena said carefully. "Just indifferent. I was the good deed they could point to, the orphan they saved, but I was never really family." "Then they were fools." Mrs. Chen stood, disappeared into another room, and returned with a wooden box. "We saved this for you, everything from when you lived with us." Inside were drawings Elena had made as a child, report cards from 3rd grade, a friendship bracelet she'd woven, photos of birthday celebrations, picnics in the park, ordinary moments that she'd completely forgotten, and at the bottom, a letter in Mrs. Chen's handwriting, addressed to Elena on her 18th birthday. Never sent. Elena opened it with trembling hands. Dearest Elena, if you're reading this, it means we found the courage to reach out after all these years. Or perhaps you found us. Either way, we want you to know you were loved. For 11 months, you were our daughter in every way that mattered. We taught you to ride a bike. We celebrated your 9th birthday with chocolate cake. We held you when you had nightmares about losing your parents. And when the wards took you away, we told ourselves it was for the best, that you deserved a family with resources, opportunities, everything we couldn't give you. But we never stopped loving you, never stopped hoping you were happy. You will always have a home with us. Always. With all our love, Lily and David. Chens. Elena couldn't see through her tears. These people, these kind, ordinary people who'd had so little, had loved her, truly loved her, and she'd never known. Why didn't you send this? She asked. We were afraid, Mrs. Chen admitted. Afraid the wards would think we were trying to interfere. Afraid you'd forgotten us and we'd just be a painful reminder. Afraid of so many things that seem silly now. Elena looked at the photos, the letter, the evidence of love she'd never known existed. Then she stood. I need to get my husband. There's someone I want you to meet. Dominic came immediately when she called. He walked into the modest house with the same commanding presence he brought everywhere, but his expression softened when he saw Elena's tear-stained face. This is Lily and David Chen, Elena said. They're my family, my real family, the people who loved me when I had nothing. She watched understanding dawn in Dominic's eyes, watched him assess the situation with the same quick intelligence he brought to business negotiations. Then he did something Elena didn't expect. He bowed slightly, showing respect in a way she'd never seen him do before. Thank you, he said simply, for taking care of her, for loving her when she needed it most. Mrs. Chen studied him with the sharp eyes of someone who'd spent years evaluating foster children and their needs. You're the mafia boss everyone's afraid of. Yes, ma'am. And you love our Elena? More than anything in this world. Then you're welcome in our home. They stayed for an hour, drinking tea and sharing stories. The Chens told embarrassing tales about 9-year-old Elena. Dominic shared carefully edited versions of how they'd met. And slowly, Elena felt something broken inside her start to heal. You should visit more often, Mr. Chen said as they prepared to leave. We're not getting any younger, and we'd like to be part of your life, if you'll have us. I'd like that, Elena said. Very much. Mrs. Chen hugged her tight. That man of yours, he's dangerous. I can see it. But he looks at you like you hung the moon. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. On the drive back to the estate, Elena sat close to Dominic, her hand in his. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For understanding that I needed that. For being respectful to them. For not making it about you or your world. They're important to you. That makes them important to me. He squeezed her hand. Do you feel better? I feel like I finally understand something I've been missing my whole life. What real love looks like. What family is supposed to be. And does our marriage look like real love to you yet? Elena considered the question seriously. It's starting to. When you defended me at the board meeting, when you gave me space to see the Chens alone, when you respected them even though they're nobody important in your world, those moments feel real. They are real, Elena. All of it is real. Even the obsessive stalking for 10 years? Especially that. But he smiled when he said it. Elena leaned her head against his shoulder. Vanessa's going to prison. Yes. I should feel guilty about that. She's still Catherine's daughter, still Richard's pride and joy. But you don't feel guilty. No, I feel relieved. Is that terrible? It's human, Dominic said. She tried to kill you, Elena. Feeling relieved that she'll face consequences for that doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you someone who finally values her own life. They drove in comfortable silence for a while. Then Elena's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. The press knows everything. About Vanessa's arrest, about your adoption, about Dominic's takeover of Ward Industries. It's going to be everywhere by morning. I'm sorry. Catherine Elena showed Dominic the message. Are you ready for that? He asked. For everyone to know your family tried to destroy you? I don't know. But I don't think I have a choice. You always have a choice. Dominic took her phone, typed a response. We can control the narrative, get ahead of it, tell your story on your terms. How? Press conference, tomorrow morning, you and me, together. We tell them the truth, that Vanessa collaborated with criminals, that your family failed to protect you, that you're moving forward with people who actually value you. That sounds terrifying. It is, but it's also powerful. You get to define who you are instead of letting them define you. Elena thought about 9-year-old her, invisible and desperate to belong. About 16-year-old her reading poetry in library corners, about the woman she'd become. Married to a dangerous man, targeted by her own sister, finally learning to fight back. Okay, she said, let's do it. Let's tell them everything. Dominic smiled, fierce and proud. There's my wife. That night, Elena stood in front of her bathroom mirror and barely recognized herself. The invisible girl was gone. In her place stood someone harder, sharper, more aware of her own worth. Someone who'd survived her family's cruelty and her sister's murderous jealousy. Someone who was learning, slowly, to believe she deserved the love being offered to her. Dominic appeared in the doorway behind her, his reflection joining hers in the mirror. Ready for tomorrow? He asked. No, but I'll do it anyway. He moved closer, his hand settling on her shoulders. You're remarkable, you know that? I'm a mess. You're a survivor. There's a difference. Elena turned to face him. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me this is real. That 10 years from now you won't regret choosing me. That I won't wake up one day and discover this was all just another manipulation. Dominic cupped her face in his hands, his dark eyes intense. Elena, I have spent 10 years of my life building toward this moment. I have restructured my entire world around the goal of being worthy of you. I have loved you through distance and silence and the absolute agony of watching you live your life without me in it. This is the most real thing I've ever felt. And 10 years from now, I'll love you even more than I do right now. That's my promise. Elena felt tears prick her eyes for what felt like the 100th time that day. I want to believe you. Then believe me, or don't. I'll wait. I've gotten very good at waiting. She laughed despite everything. You're very patient for someone who orchestrates elaborate schemes to get what you want. Only with you. Everyone else gets my impatience. Elena stood on her toes and pressed a soft kiss to his cheek. Thank you. For today. For all of it. Tomorrow will be harder, Dominic warned. The press conference, the questions. Everyone will want to know every detail of your relationship with your family. I know, but I won't be alone this time. No, he agreed, pulling her close. You'll never be alone again. As Elena fell asleep that night, she thought about the Chens and their modest house full of love. About Vanessa in a holding cell somewhere, finally facing consequences. About Catherine and Richard, their perfect family shattered beyond repair. And about Dominic, still holding her even in sleep, keeping promises he'd made to himself 10 years ago. Tomorrow she would face the world. Tomorrow she would tell her truth. But tonight, she let herself believe that maybe, impossibly, this broken beginning could become something beautiful. That maybe the Mafia boss who'd obsessed over her for a decade actually did see her for who she really was. And that maybe, just maybe, she was finally learning to see herself too. The press conference was scheduled for 10 in the morning at the Grand Ballroom of the Meridian Hotel, the same venue where Elena and Dominic's wedding reception had been interrupted by an assassination attempt. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. Elena stood backstage, her hands trembling despite the calm expression she'd carefully constructed. She wore a simple navy dress, elegant but not ostentatious, the kind of outfit that said she had nothing to hide. Dominic stood beside her in a charcoal suit, his presence as steady as ever. We don't have to do this, he said quietly, for the third time that morning. Say the word and we walk away. Let the press speculate. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. Elena straightened her shoulders. I spent my whole life being defined by other people's narratives. The orphan, the charity case, the ungrateful daughter. Today I get to tell my own story. Marco appeared from the side entrance. They're ready for you, full house, every major outlet in the city, plus national news. This is going to be big. Elena took a deep breath. Dominic's hand found hers, warm and steady. "Together," he said. "Together," she agreed. They walked out to a wall of camera flashes and shouted questions. The room fell silent as they took their seats at the table facing the crowd. Elena saw familiar faces in the audience. Society reporters who'd covered her wedding, business journalists who'd been following Dominic's empire for years, and a few faces she didn't recognize but whose hungry expressions told her exactly what they were after. Blood. Dominic leaned toward the microphone. "Thank you all for coming. My wife and I want to address recent events involving her family and set the record straight. Elena will make a statement, and then we'll take a limited number of questions." He nodded to her. This was her moment. Elena pulled the microphone closer. "My name is Elena Moretti, formerly Elena Ward. 3 weeks ago, I married Dominic Moretti in what was widely reported as a strategic alliance between two powerful families. That's partially true. But what wasn't reported, what no one knew, is that the marriage arrangement was orchestrated by my adoptive family as a way to secure political and business advantages." She paused, watching the reporters scribble frantically. "I agreed to the marriage because I believed I owed the Ward family a debt. They took me in when I was 9 years old after my biological parents died in a car accident. They gave me a home, an education, opportunities. And for 15 years, I tried to repay that debt by being the perfect daughter. Quiet, grateful, invisible." Her voice grew stronger. "But what I didn't know, what I only discovered recently, is that before the Wards adopted me, another family wanted to keep me. Lily and David Chen were my foster parents for 11 months. They petitioned to adopt me. They loved me. But they were passed over in favor of the Wards, who had more money and influence. I spent 15 years believing nobody had ever truly wanted me, when the truth was that people who genuinely cared had been pushed aside by a system that valued wealth over love." She saw several reporters look surprised. This wasn't the narrative they'd expected. 2 days ago, my adoptive sister Vanessa Ward was arrested on charges of conspiracy to commit murder. Specifically, my murder. She collaborated with Viktor Volkov, a known criminal, to orchestrate the assassination attempt at my wedding reception. She did this because she was jealous that I had married someone powerful. Because for the first time in my life, I had something she wanted. The room erupted, shouted questions, camera flashes, chaos. Dominic raised a hand and the noise subsided slightly. "The Ward family has issued statements claiming I manipulated my way into their home, that my adoption was fraudulent, that I'm using my marriage to Dominic to gain power and destroy them. All of these claims are false. My adoption was completely legal. I have documentation proving every detail. And as for using my marriage for power," Elena's voice turned cold, "I didn't need to use anything. Dominic chose me. He's been choosing me for 10 years, long before the Ward family ever considered me valuable enough to marry off." She looked directly at the camera. "To Catherine and Richard Ward, I'm sorry your perfect family fell apart. I'm sorry your daughter committed crimes that will send her to prison. But I'm not sorry for finally valuing myself enough to walk away from people who never truly valued me. You taught me that family is about obligation and debt. But I've learned that real family is about love. Unconditional, genuine love. The kind the Chens showed me. The kind Dominic shows me every day." Dominic took over the microphone. "I'd like to add something. There's been speculation about why I married Elena, about whether this was purely a business arrangement. So let me be completely clear. I've been in love with Elena Ward since we were 17 years old. We attended the same preparatory school for 1 year. She doesn't remember me from that time. I was nobody, just a scholarship student from the wrong side of town. But I remember her. And I spent the next 10 years building an empire with one goal, becoming someone worthy of her." The confession sent a ripple through the crowd. This was not the ruthless mafia boss they'd expected. This was something else entirely. "When I heard the Ward family was arranging her marriage, I made sure every other potential suitor withdrew from consideration. I orchestrated the entire alliance to ensure that when Elena married, it would be to me. Some might call that manipulation. I call it determination. Because I've always known, that Elena deserved someone who would see her, truly see her, not just use her." He turned to look at Elena, and the expression on his face made her breath catch. "My wife is the strongest person I've ever known. She survived 15 years in a family that treated her like a commodity. She agreed to marry a stranger to honor what she believed was a debt. She faced down an assassin on her wedding day with more grace than most people show in their entire lives. And she's standing here today, telling her truth, even though it would be easier to stay silent. Dominic looked back at the press. So yes, I manipulated the marriage arrangement, and I'd do it again without hesitation, because Elena Moretti, that brilliant, courageous woman, is mine, and I am hers. Anyone who tries to come between us will discover exactly how far I'm willing to go to protect her. The room exploded with questions. Mr. Moretti, are you admitting to criminal conspiracy? Mrs. Moretti, will you testify against your sister? Is it true you're taking over Ward Industries? What about Victor Volkov? Is he still alive? Elena leaned forward. I'll take one more question. A young reporter in the back raised her hand. Mrs. Moretti, after everything you've been through, the manipulation, the assassination attempt, discovering your husband orchestrated your marriage, do you actually love him? Or are you just trapped in another cage, this one with better decor? The question hung in the air. Elena saw Dominic tense slightly beside her, though his expression remained neutral. This was the question everyone wanted answered, the question that would define how this story was told. Elena took a breath. 3 weeks ago, I would have said I didn't love him, that this was a transaction, a business arrangement, nothing more. But 3 weeks ago, I didn't know what love actually looked like. I thought love was earning approval through perfect behavior. I thought love was being grateful for scraps of affection. I thought love was making myself small so others could shine. She reached for Dominic's hand. But Dominic taught me something different. He taught me that love is seeing someone completely, their fears, their flaws, their broken pieces, and choosing them anyway. Love is defending someone even when it costs you. Love is patience. Love is building an entire empire just to be worthy of one person's notice. Is it conventional? No. Is it slightly insane? Probably. But is it real? Elena met Dominic's eyes. Yes. It's the most real thing I've ever felt. So to answer your question, I am not trapped. For the first time in my life, I'm free. Free to be myself. Free to be loved for who I am, not what I can provide. And yes, I love him. I love the man who waited 10 years. I love the man who destroyed my enemies without hesitation. I love the man who respected the people who raised me even though they had nothing to offer him. I love my husband. The cameras captured the moment Dominic raised her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. The gesture was simple but spoke volumes. That's all we have to say, Dominic announced. Thank you for your time. They stood and walked out together, ignoring the shouted questions that followed them. In the car, Elena finally let herself breathe. That was terrifying, she said. You were perfect. Dominic pulled her close. Did you mean it? What you said about loving me? Every word. Did you mean what you said about being mine? I've been yours since I was 17 years old, Elena. Nothing is going to change that. They drove in comfortable silence for a moment before Elena's phone rang. She glanced at the screen. Lily Chen. Mrs. Chen, hi. We just watched the press conference, Lily's warm voice came through. Sweetheart, we're so proud of you. Standing up there, telling your truth like that. You were magnificent. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you, that means everything. David and I were talking. We'd like to have you both over for dinner this weekend. Properly, this time. No surprise visits, no emotional breakdowns, just family. We'd love that, Elena said, her voice thick. And Elena, we love you. We never stopped. Remember that. After she hung up, Elena leaned against Dominic. They want us to come for dinner. Then we'll go. Though I should warn you, I'm a terrible cook. If they ask me to help in the kitchen, disaster will follow. Elena laughed despite everything. Somehow I think they'll forgive you. The next few days were a whirlwind. Vanessa's trial date was set. Her lawyers were already trying to negotiate a plea deal, but the evidence was overwhelming. Richard resigned from Ward Industries' board, his reputation in tatters. Catherine issued a statement through her publicist expressing shock and disappointment, but notably, she never apologized to Elena. The press coverage was intense, but gradually shifted from scandal to something else. Elena became a symbol, the woman who'd survived her family's cruelty and found genuine love in the most unexpected place. Romance novelists wanted to buy her story rights. Self-help authors wanted her to write about overcoming toxic family dynamics. Magazine editors wanted her for their covers. Elena declined everything. She had no interest in being a public figure and turning her pain into profit. But she did agree to one interview with a small nonprofit magazine that focused on adoption and foster care reform. She told them about the Chens, about the system that had prioritized wealth over love, about the importance of following up with adopted children to ensure they were actually thriving, not just surviving. The interview went viral. Within a week, 3 state legislators had contacted her about testifying before committees examining foster care and adoption policies. Elena agreed to all of them. "You're going to change things," Dominic said one evening as they reviewed her testimony notes. "Make the system better for kids who come after you." "I hope so. Maybe that's why all of this happened, not just for me to find you, but to have a platform to actually help others. You're remarkable, you know that? You keep saying that, because it keeps being true." 2 weeks after the press conference, Elena stood in a courtroom watching Vanessa accept a plea agreement, 15 years in prison with possibility of parole after 10. Catherine sobbed in the gallery. Richard sat stone-faced, his empire crumbling around him. Vanessa looked at Elena only once during the hearing. Her beautiful face was haggard, her eyes empty. She mouthed something that might have been, "I'm sorry," or might have been, "I hate you." Elena would never know, and she found she didn't care. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Dominic's security kept them at a distance while Elena made a brief statement. "Justice has been served. My sister will face consequences for her actions. I hope she uses her time in prison to reflect on the choices that led her here. As for me, I'm moving forward with my life. I have a husband who loves me, a family who chose me, and a future I'm building on my own terms. That's all I have to say." As they drove away, Elena felt something shift inside her. The weight she'd been carrying for 15 years, the constant question of why she wasn't good enough, why she couldn't earn the ward's love, finally lifted. She was enough. She'd always been enough. It was them who were lacking, not her. That weekend, they had dinner with the Chens. Lily cooked enough food for an army, traditional dishes that filled the small house with warmth and familiar scents. David told stories about Elena as a child that made Dominic laugh. They looked at old photo albums, played cards, ate dessert until they were stuffed. It was ordinary, completely, perfectly ordinary. And it was the best evening Elena had spent in years. "Your husband is good people," David told Elena quietly, while Dominic helped Lily with dishes in the kitchen. "Dangerous, yes, but good where it counts. He looks at you like you're his whole world." "He waited 10 years for me," Elena said. "I still can't quite believe it. Some people know what they want and refuse to settle. Your Dominic is one of those people. Don't take it for granted." "I won't, I promise." As they were leaving, Lily pulled Elena aside. "We want to be part of your life going forward. Real family. Is that okay?" "It's more than okay. It's everything I've wanted since I was 9 years old." "Then you have it, sweetheart. You have us. Always." In the car home, Dominic was quiet. "What are you thinking about?" Elena asked. "How different tonight was from dinner at the Ward mansion. How love is supposed to look. How lucky I am that you're giving this, us, a real chance. I'm the lucky one. You could have any woman in this city." "I don't want any woman. I want you. I've only ever wanted you." Elena studied his profile in the darkness. "Tell me something. That day in the library when you first saw me, what made you decide I was worth 10 years of your life?" Dominic was quiet for a moment. "You were crying, trying to hide it, reading your book, but tears were just streaming down your face. And this group of girls walked by, popular girls, the kind who rule high schools, and one of them saw you crying and laughed, called you pathetic." Elena flinched. She didn't remember that specific moment, but she remembered hundreds like it. "You looked up at her," Dominic continued, "and you didn't yell or cry harder or run away. You just said very calmly, 'At least I feel things deeply enough to cry.' That's better than feeling nothing at all. Then you went back to your book like she didn't exist." "I said that?" "You said that. And I thought, that girl is going to survive. Whatever hell she's living through, she's going to survive it, because she's already stronger than all of them combined." He glanced at her. "I wanted to be there when you came out the other side. I wanted to be worthy of the woman you'd become. And am I? That woman you imagined? You're better. The woman I imagined was strong but isolated. You're strong and learning to let people in, learning to love. That's so much harder and so much more courageous. Elena leaned against his shoulder. I never thought I'd be here. Married to someone who actually sees me, who fought for me, who loved me when I couldn't love myself. Get used to it. I'm not going anywhere. 3 months after the wedding, Ward Industries was fully restructured under Dominic's control. He'd cleaned house, removing corrupt board members, implementing ethical business practices, and ironically, turning the company into something Richard had always claimed it was, but never actually achieved: legitimate. Elena found herself involved in the company's charitable foundation, focusing on foster care reform and adoption support. It gave her purpose beyond being Mrs. Moretti, beyond being the girl who'd escaped her toxic family. She also reconnected with Sarah Mitchell, Dominic's ex-girlfriend, after Sarah reached out through a mutual acquaintance. They met for coffee, two women who'd been affected by the same complicated man. I was angry at first, Sarah admitted. When I heard he'd married you, I thought, of course, the mysterious woman he'd been pining for all along. But then I saw your press conference and I understood. Understood what? Why he could never love me. He was already completely consumed by loving you. I was just the placeholder until he could have the real thing. Sarah smiled ruefully. I'm not angry anymore. Actually, I'm relieved. I deserve someone who loves me like that, completely, obsessively, without reservation. And now I'm free to find him. I'm sorry he hurt you, Elena said quietly. Don't be. He was honest with me, even if I didn't want to hear it. And he gave me clarity about what I actually want in a partner. So in a weird way, I'm grateful. Sarah stood to leave, then paused. Take care of him, Elena. He's a good man under all that danger and intensity. And he loves you more than I've ever seen anyone love another person. Don't waste that. I won't, Elena promised. 6 months after the wedding, Elena stood in front of her childhood home one last time. The Wards were selling the mansion. They couldn't afford to keep it after the scandal and financial restructuring. Catherine had moved to her sister's house upstate. Richard was living in a modest apartment downtown trying to rebuild his reputation. Elena had come to collect the last of her belongings, boxes of books and photos that had been sitting in storage for years. She found Catherine in the library surrounded by packing boxes, looking older and more fragile than Elena had ever seen her. Elena, Catherine said softly, I didn't expect you to come personally. I thought you'd send someone. I wanted to do this myself. Say goodbye to this place properly. Catherine nodded. I suppose you're happy, watching everything fall apart. No, Elena said honestly. I'm not happy you're suffering, but I'm not sorry for telling the truth either. Oh, Vanessa made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but she's still my daughter. She's in prison because of you. She's in prison because she tried to have me killed, Catherine, because she collaborated with criminals, because she made choices that had consequences. I didn't put her there. She put herself there. Catherine's face crumpled. Where did I go wrong? How did my family end up like this? Elena could have been cruel, could have listed every failure, every moment of neglect, every time Catherine had chosen Vanessa over her. But she found she didn't have the energy for cruelty anymore. You loved Vanessa so much that you never taught her that the world doesn't revolve around her. You gave her everything except boundaries. And you treated me like I should be grateful just to exist in your orbit. Elena's voice was steady, calm. But I don't hate you, Catherine. I actually feel sorry for you. You had 2 daughters who needed you, and you only had room in your heart for one. I did love you, Catherine whispered. Maybe not the way you needed, but I tried. No, you didn't. You kept me because it looked good, because people admired you for taking in an orphan. But you never made me feel like I belonged, and that's something I had to accept and move past. Can you ever forgive me? Elena considered the question. Forgiveness isn't about you, Catherine. It's about me letting go of the anger that was eating me alive. So yes, I forgive you. But that doesn't mean I want a relationship with you. It just means I'm done letting your failures define my worth. She picked up her boxes and turned to leave. Elena, Catherine called, are you happy? With him? Really happy? Elena paused in the doorway. Happier than I ever was here. Dominic sees me, really sees me, and he loves what he sees. That's something you never gave me. So yes, Catherine, I'm happy. She walked out of the Ward mansion for the last time, and she didn't look back. That evening, Dominic found her in the library at their estate, surrounded by the boxes from her childhood. Photos, journals, memories of a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. You went to see Catherine, he said. Not a question. I needed closure. I needed to say goodbye to that chapter of my life. And did you get it? Closure? Elena looked up at him. I think so. I told her I forgave her. And I meant it. But I also made it clear that forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I'm done trying to earn love from people who were never capable of giving it. Dominic sat beside her, pulled her close. I'm proud of you. That couldn't have been easy. It wasn't, but it was necessary. Elena leaned against him. I've been thinking about something. What's that? The Chens. How they wanted to adopt me but couldn't because they didn't have enough money. How many other kids are out there being placed with families who have resources but not love, while people who could give them real homes are passed over? You want to change the system. I want to try. Dominic, what if we used our resources, our money, our influence, our platform to actually make a difference? To support families like the Chens who want to foster and adopt but can't afford the legal fees and home studies and everything else? She could see the idea taking shape in his mind, the way it always did when he was planning something. We could start a foundation, he said slowly. Provide grants for adoption costs, legal support, follow-up services to make sure kids are actually thriving. Partner with social workers who prioritize genuine care over family wealth. Exactly. We could call it the Lily and David Chen Foundation. Honor them for what they tried to do for me. Dominic smiled, and it was one of those rare, genuine smiles that transformed his entire face. You're going to save so many kids, Elena. Give them what you never had. We're going to save them. Together. Together, he agreed. 1 year after their wedding, Elena and Dominic stood on the shore of the bay behind their estate. The sun was setting, painting the water gold and crimson. They were alone. No security detail, no staff, just the two of them. Dominic had something in his hand, a small velvet box. What's this? Elena asked. I never properly proposed to you. Our engagement was arranged, transactional. I want to do it right this time. He opened the box to reveal a ring. Not the enormous diamond he'd given her at their wedding, but something simpler. A single sapphire surrounded by smaller diamonds, elegant and understated. Elena Moretti, he said, and his voice was steady despite the emotion in his eyes. I've loved you since we were 17 years old. I've spent 10 years building a life worthy of you. But this past year, actually being married to you, has taught me something I didn't know before. What's that? That I didn't just love the idea of you. I love you, the real you, the woman who fights for foster kids, who forgives people who don't deserve it, who faces press conferences with more courage than hardened criminals, who makes me want to be better every single day. He took her left hand where she still wore the original wedding band. So I'm asking you now, with no arrangements or contracts or obligations, will you marry me again? Will you choose this marriage, choose us, not because of debt or duty, but because you want to? Elena felt tears streaming down her face. You're asking me to marry you when we're already married? I'm asking you to choose me, the way I chose you 10 years ago and every day since. She looked at this dangerous, complicated, utterly devoted man, the one who'd waited, who'd planned, who'd destroyed her enemies and honored her chosen family, who'd given her a platform to help others and space to heal. The man who'd taught her what real love looked like. Yes, she said. 1,000 times yes. I choose you, Dominic. I choose us. Not because I owe you anything, but because I love you. Because you're my home. He slid the sapphire ring onto her finger next to her wedding band. Then he pulled her close and kissed her. Not the careful kiss from their wedding, but something deeper, more real, more true. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For giving me a chance. For not running when you learned about the 10 years of watching. For loving me despite everything I am. Because of everything you are, Elena corrected. The obsessive planning, the ruthless protection, the patient waiting, all of it. I love all of it. They stood there as the sun sank below the horizon, two people who'd found each other across distance and time and impossible circumstances. The Mafia boss who'd spent a decade preparing for this moment. The invisible girl who'd finally learned she was worth seeing. Together, they'd built something neither of them had expected, a real marriage, real love, real partnership. And as stars began appearing in the darkening sky, Elena realized something she'd never thought possible. She was home, not in this mansion or this city, but in the arms of someone who truly saw her. After years of searching for belonging, she'd finally found it. Not in the family she was born into or the one that adopted her, but in the family she chose. Dominic, the Chens, the life they were building together, the children they would help through their foundation. This was what love looked like, what family felt like, what home meant, and she would never take it for granted again. "What are you thinking?" Dominic asked, watching her face in the starlight. "I'm thinking about that girl in the library, the one who was crying over poetry, how she never could have imagined this moment. Would she have believed it? That the quiet boy in the corner was planning all of this?" Elena smiled. "No, but I think she would have wanted to. I think she was waiting for someone to see her too. She just didn't know it yet." "We found each other," Dominic said simply. "Against all odds, against all logic, we found each other. You found me, and you waited until I was ready to find you back. I'd wait forever if that's what it took. You don't have to wait anymore. I'm here. I'm yours. And you're mine." "Always," Dominic promised. "Always," Elena echoed. And as they stood together on the shore, wrapped in each other's arms, both of them finally understood something they'd been searching for their entire lives. Love wasn't about grand gestures or perfect families or fairy tale endings. It was about seeing someone completely, all their broken pieces, all their scars, all their fears, and choosing them anyway. It was about patience and devotion and building something real from the wreckage of the past. It was about two lonely people finding each other in a library and spending the next decade making their way back to that moment. This was their story. Complicated, messy, beautiful, real. The Mafia boss and the invisible girl. The 10-year obsession that became a lifetime commitment. The forced marriage that transformed into legendary love. And it was only just beginning.